Right. This video is going over a few questions that students had in my class. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And so I wanted to kind of set up like some kind of template or like a start of how to do these little things. All right. So I'm going to go through the line here. The first question that was asked is, how do you put a timer? And a lot of these things you can go back to your old code. So if you remember, I think it was in the 1-2-2 activity, you could put a timer, and there was a timer in the game that to like count down how many times you click the ball. So I went back to that old code. I mean, so some of this is, hey, go back to your old project and rip the timer part out of the code. But there's a lot of stuff in there. So it took a little bit of time figuring out, hey, what variables were related to time and what functions in there actually affected time. It was just this countdown thing, really. And how much like the on timer stuff, there was like the on click, on press, what is being affected by time. And then saying, hey, the question came up is, I want this to be like a 5-minute timer. All right. The timer we did before was a 30-second timer or like a 10-second timer. All right. Yeah, and there is a way you can run this code while everything else keeps going, because the timer, I'll just show you how this runs. So I'm going to hit run right here. I'll walk you through this code. So this is a 5-minute timer. It's going to display it in minutes and seconds there. So as I keep going, and I think my digits will be correct. But there's a few different things. The digits should be correct. There's a few different things we had to do to make that work, right? And this code will run while the rest of the code is running, because this just clicks every second. So the way that works, as a reminder, is we have this function called countdown. Countdown here will tick 1 second off the timer. And then I think it'll keep going till it runs out of time. Then it says time's up. I didn't change that part of the code. That ticks based off this on timer thing. So because the countdown interval is 1,000, and 1,000 represents 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second, it says every 1 second, run the function count. Oh, it says every 1,000 seconds is that variable, or 1,000 milliseconds, run the function countdown here. So this will run while the rest of your code goes on. Now, a few things. I didn't want to just say, just make a list of seconds, right? I don't want to say, do 300 seconds and count down. That's not how time usually works. So I had to, like, this is my timer. I want to do 3,000 seconds right here, and that represents 5 minutes equals 300 seconds. So how did I figure out how to make that work? Well, I set up a variable for minutes because how I did this math, and I wanted to keep track of how many minutes were in the game. And the minutes that you have for the game is the timer divided by 60. That gets you some weird decimal number, right? So if you're at you're at 4 minutes, 30 seconds, it's going to say 4.5. I don't want it to say 4.5. So what I want it to round down to 4. So how do you round a decimal number? Because we haven't really done this Python stuff yet. Dealt with like decimal math too much. I can say minutes. What I want to do, if I wanted to round down, one hack for that is you can just wrap minutes in the int function. This will turn it to an integer, and it'll just chop off those decimals at the end. We're rounding down in a way. Or I think it's just chopping off the decimals. That's what I want to do for this code. Now, I also kept track of seconds. So your seconds, you could almost like think of this as like a mod function. It's like the leftovers after that minutes. It's that decimal amount you chopped off. So the way I kind of calculated that, I said, hey, take your total time in overall seconds, but subtract the number of minutes times 60. So that math will get how many seconds I have left. Now I have my minutes and seconds, right? Now, a few things. If the timer is less than 0, we're going to write time's up. Game's over. And you can make it do other stuff. Fine. If your timer's up, you can change this code. Now, yeah, because maybe your code stops or something else runs. But I think there was other parts of this that I stripped out because I think it's supposed to run other things in that other function when we did the thing, but when we did the 1-2-2 project, but strip them out. Now, the weird thing, let's say if I had 5 minutes and 2 seconds left, or like 4 minutes and 2 seconds. The original case, if I did that, it would have said like 4, it would have gone like 4 and then colon 2. But that's not correct. It should have been 4 and then O2, right? So the way I kind of worked around this, I said, hey, if your timer's not less than 0, I mean you have time left, you have two options. If your seconds is less than 10, which means it's a single digit number, I write the timer as this plus the amount of minutes plus a 0, and then do, because you got to put the 0 for the tens digit, and then your seconds. Else, just write in seconds right here. Those were little things we had come up with. This code will work if you just want a timer, but obviously you can do more to this, and you can rearrange where it sits by changing a bunch of things in here. So that was the timer. The other question that came up was, how do you draw weird curves? Like how do you draw? Oh, we had other questions too. That reminds me. I'll get to it too. How do you draw ellipses, right? Ovals. I say that. Okay, hold on. So like someone do like a Nike logo type thing. So how do I do that kind of thing? Here's one way I did this. Like you basically, there's nothing in there that I've seen for the Python turtle. Like you can draw circles, and that's the only curve that's kind of built in. Everything else, like you have to either find a function that has already made that. There might be functions out there in Python turtle, or you can kind of do these hacks. Basically, a curve is just a bunch of small movements anyways. So I said, hey, one way to do this, if I just wanted a curve shape, is like just break it up into little chunks. So I started making like a curve, and it was kind of supposed to like be out like this, kind of like almost like the square root function, square root of x function right there, sideways parabola. So you can start basically I was doing forward commands, and then you kind of rotate a little bit every step, and you can go like that. Another option could have been using a bunch of go-to commands, like go to this spot. As long as it's very small, you can make those things work. If I were to do this on my screen, like it's hard to kind of draw that. You almost want some annotation program like I'm using with Zoom right here. I'm using the annotation features, or you can like sketch something or have some kind of overlay. Actually might be really neat. Like if you wanted to like it to trace a picture, I would make that picture your background. So if you remember the Python commands, hold on. So you could set your background and then maybe trace around it, or you're going to have to eyeball this way. So I think that's the best way to do a curve. Now, another type of curve is we want to do ellipses. Let me find the code for that. So another option, if you can't draw that curve, someone asked, how do I make like an oval shape, also called an ellipse? And you can draw circles in Python. And I didn't know how, but I was lurking online, and then we went to, I think you just kind of search up, go Python turtle, draw an ellipse. And I think this was on Stack Overflow or something. We didn't make this. I didn't make this, but someone had this function. I forgot. I should have put the source down somewhere. Guess never wrote it down. Yeah, I have this in Trinket too. But here's the code for an ellipse. I just don't touch that. And then I put a little like an explanation. There's the width, the height parameter, x position, y position, the angle of how much oval to draw, like what percent, right? Remember, you like do 360 would draw the whole thing. And then your angle, you can be in degrees or radians if you want to, I guess, for that angle right there. So I've done this, and I'm running this ellipse code right here. So position 1030, it's drawing the whole angle here, and then it is, no. The width is 10, the height is 30, position's at 50-50, and then it drew that oval right there. So I can like say, hey, maybe I want this to be 45. Let's see if this runs, or it's just going to instantly create again. Nope. So there you go. That's how you can make an oval or an ellipse. Here's some code. I'll post it in the chat, or take a screenshot and type it out. All right, so drawing weird curves. Next thing was like, how do you add pictures again? And if adding pictures is back down to the robot thing we did, which was 115, I believe. So they did that robot maze. So there's a few ways you can add pictures. I got a picture of Oscar, former student. So I made this code. I made his face the background. So one thing you can do, if you have to have the GIF, and if you want to make it a background picture, so this WMBG pic. First of all, you got to upload a picture, and it's got to be in the GIF format. And I think it'll take something of any size, but so if you have a picture super big, it's just not gonna, it's gonna be a little too big. You're gonna figure out the right size for it, so you might need to resize the picture in Paint or whatever. And then this will make the background picture of him, and then you can actually add it to the turtle images, so it's actually your turtle. Like maybe you want that picture to like be moving around the screen, or you want to stamp that picture around the screen. Do that through turtles. So, and this was in my list of commands in here, so I had to go back and reference that. And you can add the turtle image, set it to Oscar face. You added it, do this add shape thing with turtle image, so it adds that shape to the possible turtles library. And then I have my turtle C. And when you create that turtle, you can actually set the shape right here. There's also a command, like if you want to change it later, I think it's the turtle.shape command. You can just set that later anytime. But if you want to just set it up when you create it, boom, that works. And then it was actually moving around, and I was using a stamp command. I guess if I took those stamps off, I'm going to run that again. It was just moving around and stamping each time. It's probably not the greatest thing right there, but, and, replit, it's weird, but there you go. That's a reminder how to do that. All right, the other thing was someone wanted to have like a countdown, how many chances are left. Like if you're playing a game and you can lose a chance every time. So it's basically almost like a timer. I mean, it wasn't a timer, but so how do we do this? This is kind of like, it's like keeping track of a score, right? But it's like the score in reverse in a way. So we've done, if you go back to the circle clicking game, you kept track of how many times you clicked. So kind of took that same idea here. As game configuration, blah, blah, blah. Let's run this right now. So the functions I'm having for updating the score looks like this. So I start off with this variable chances. So in your game configuration, you start off with 10 chances, and it's right there. And then, so every time you update for this game, it's just subtracting one chance every time. And then I erase this, and I update the chances right here. So that's how that code works. Why did that kind of stop? Oh, because I was just example giving it 1 second delay, updating chances every time and showing that you can make that count down. If I were, that's not really how you'd use it. You're probably using it like every time some event happens, the person makes the wrong choice, I think was the point for someone's game. Then you could run this, or you don't have to call it update chances. I would say like, remove a life or however you're doing that. And you can use something similar to this. All right. And you can put checks in there like, oh, if the lives or the chances left is at 0, there's some game over thing. That's fine. All right. That's how you could make that. The other question that came up was, how do you save your state? Or like save where you're at in the game? And I want to show two different ways. Like what ifs, or you want to like, so the question was asked in two different ways. How do you like, I'm going to do it the weird way first. How do you like save where you left off last time? Let's say like for whatever reason, maybe you wanted to quit out of the game early and like come back to it. So I started coming up with this. I took my old Star Wars game. I don't think I finished it. I didn't finish doing the save state. I said like, how would I make it so that I can save the state? Save where I'm at. So let's say I ended early. Like what if there was an option here every time I do a choice where I can just say quit? And it would quit the game at this point. But next time I load up the game, I want it to be at that same spot. So for this, where it's like a choose your own adventure game, my thought was that I'm gonna create a new variable called like save your state. You got to figure out when you're trying to save, like how much information do I need to save? And for the purpose of this game, it's just like an adventure. I want to save where I'm at in the story, so I just got to save like one variable that is where are you at? So, and I'm setting that variable to be a certain number depending on the state. So I'm going to use that to like basically like sneak through code in a way. So I have a save.text is going to be a one number outside here. Keeping at one digit, I don't think I have more states than that. Probably get more complicated if I had more than one digit. So I'm saying, hey, and I took back, when we saved, going back to that scoreboard for the clicking thing, I kind of stole a lot of that. I went back to that game, said, hey, I have this here. I don't need this print statement. I was just kind of testing things around. Probably don't need that here. So state of the game is equal to 0 at the start. And then at certain points, I'm saying these are like the checkpoints where I'm going to change the state to like 1. So after like Luke investigates, I'm going to say, oh, now the state of the game's 1. And then after you choose Obi-Wan, the state of the game's now 2. So any like those choices should be like the new states. And then you choose your pilot, and then you choose who you want to kiss. And they say, okay, so I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 possible states. The idea is I set, when you get to those checkpoints, you set it to those. When my choices here, when I would, like, who do you want to kiss right here? There should be like an option to quit. Or I can make it like if you just like close the program early. What I should do, like what if the program just died early or you just hit stop? Like you're running this, you hit stop. What I should do every time I set the game to this, I should also update this save spot too. And that's how I should do it right. And then the idea is every time you load up this game, instead of, this won't say started the game to 0. It would just load whatever numbers up in there and said, okay, that's where I want to be. I go to. And then I'd have these choices like, oh, if the game's 0, go here. The problem with this is it starts getting a little complicated because I didn't quite finish this code. Because some of the choices are buried inside other loops. So I can't, I don't know, it's complicated. But you can do it that way. So if you have like a one choose your own adventure, you want to save your spot for whatever reason, that's one way to do it. Now, another part of saving was like, hey, I don't want to just save where I'm at to be able to reload in the middle of something. I want to just save so that next time I load up, I can like print out what did I do last time, right? I was like, okay, so now I'm going to take my imposter game I'm making. So I was like, okay, so what I've added is an ability to say last time, here's what I did. So, okay, so let's say you want to say what you did last time. And so I'm walking through how I'm doing this. Probably a better way of doing this. So I said, hey, I wanted to print out which tasks did I do last time right now. Okay, so I'm going to say if I do this, I'm going to do reactor right here, and I do cafeteria next, and I'm going to do navigation. Fix the wires, and I won. I did my 3 tasks. So last time it says storage, cafeteria, shields. Now this time it's going to say reactor, cafeteria, navigation. Cool. Chance of imposter. Actually, I'm going to take this up to 50. Because it should only, so it's not always going to just do 3 every time. That's like, I go to electric. What? Did I never program electric? Oh, wow, I never did. Okay. Takes this long. Cafeteria. Fields. And med bay. I won. Okay, sweet. The imposter didn't get me. All right, so then now I load this up again. So how did I make this work? So I have the way I chose to do this is I figure out which variables do I want to save, right? And I said my 6 choices of where to go, and it should have been 7 because I never programmed electric. So I've actually saved this as a 1-line file with F or T, where T means that I did it, that's true. False means I didn't do it. Decided to do it that way with letters. Done 0s and 1s, whatever. I don't know. So how am I gonna? So how does this work? So if I said, let's say I just change this right now, I'm gonna stop it. If I make this all F's, F, 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 that means I didn't solve any task last time. Let's say last time I did nothing. So how that's printing out, so I open up this file. And then I do this part. I don't remember why I have to make this a for loop, but I just made it work. Because save file, I thought save file was just like a list. Doesn't it make a list of the lines? But then I wanted to make a variable called last game stats. I just have one line, so this just ends up working. I don't know why I have to do it this way, but it worked. So I gave up. I was like, I'm not going to think. Okay, close the file. Here's what I did. So I said, hey, for everything in last game stats. So I was actually doing... Oh, wait, why did that work? Okay, so I do for task in last game stats because it's just basically a string, right? So it's going to go through every character. It says, oh, and then I had to like put a counter in here. This is some weird hack. So basically, oh, I'm looking at part 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and said, hey, if the first one's T, you did storage. If the second one, T, you did medbay and so on. Probably a cleaner way of doing that, but whatever. Probably with like a list and it like pops from the list and stuff we learned, but I wasn't very comfortable with that, so I made it work that way. And now the last thing to make that work, I have to have it saved. I made a save game function, so it's still going through the normal stuff right here, but I have this save game every time an imposter kills you or like the game ends, because I only want to save the state at when like the game ends or imposter kills you. I'm not doing in the middle. So when either you win or you lose. What does save game do? Well, it looks at all my it looks at all these variables where I said true or false, and it basically will put a T or F depending on what it says. And I'm appending it to I made a string called final state, and I'm just appending either T or F to everything. And then I'll open that file again. I'll write that final state and close. So that's it. One line. My hack of doing that, but you can. So the key to doing this kind of stuff would be think about what, if you wanted to save, what information needs to be saved and how you want to format this. I could have done this as like 6 lines or 7 lines. Maybe you'd prefer to do it that way too. I did it but it just depends on what you are comfortable with and figuring out. I know this code works for this one line. I would just have to I guess I could have done this as multiple lines. It would have to be part of this for loop because this does each thing. I think I just done it as part of this for loop. So I could have done this differently. Maybe it would look better. Because it's weird doing this loop just to get one line. But it worked. So I'm not too worried about it. So think about what variables you want to save. Write that down and go, okay. And you can figure out how you want to format that in a save file. So that is it. Thank you. If you have more questions and more stuff, we'll do another video like this later. Bye.